What's good, everybody? I'm Jędrek, he's Sodek, and today we're gonna talk about how Modern has changed for the last 6 weeks. Let's go. Alrighty, so last time we've done one of those. It was somewhat shortly after Phyrexia got released. I think it was like week or two after PT Phyrexia. And now with over 2 months deep into Phyrexia Modern, we can really digest how the set impacted the format. Short words, not really, I guess. There aren't many cards from Phyrexia that see play, especially substantial play, but the format has changed a fair bit, I feel, over the last couple months. Maybe it started before our last video and we just didn't talk about it that much. But like, of course, some things did not change. Murktide is still the most popular and one of the best performing decks, and our number one as per usual. And of course, those statistics are kinda skewed towards decks with high presence, but that's how it always will be, because I think accounting for presence is important. And basically, no matter how you slice it, if you want to include the presence in this, it will be very hard for Murktide to not be number one on those lists because it's just the most popular deck, and it has a defensible win rate. In fact, I think its win rate got better, at least on Modo, because we are, as always, analyzing Modo, because it usually is by far the most popular deck that's a bit with a bit lower win rate than the other top decks, and this time it basically had an identical win rate to other top 3 or 4 decks.
Okay, random question. Like we saw, like we base mostly on, like not mostly, but we just based on the results from MTGO. But there are like more and more paper tournaments in the like past 6 weeks, past like a few months. And from what I remember, at least in Europe, we didn't see any, strong Murktide finishes, especially in Prague when it was 1,000 player tournament, and Murktide was not even close to the top. So
I don't think there was a single in top 32.
Yeah, that's something like it was super strange for me, and despite Murktide being the most popular deck in the format. So, do you think that there's a difference between MTGO and Paper Modern right now?
I don't think so. I think it's just how the stars aligned. I know that many strong players who possibly could be playing Murktide decided to play some other decks. There was this narrative coming before Prague that creativity is the best deck. And it's somewhat of a point of contest right now, I think. Like a bunch of people will tell you that Murktide is the best deck. Some people, and conversely, people will tell you that no, creativity is the best deck. Some people will tell you that, I don't know, Rhinos are the best deck, whatever. And I was kinda in the camp of creativity being great. And then I played a bunch more against it. I spoke to very strong players like Stefan Schutz, also known as Mental Misstep on Modo. I spoke with him in Prague. He was playing Murktide. Even though he usually plays 4 color on Modo, he decided that the paper metagame is just a bit too open for color to succeed. Hence why he chose Murktide. And when I was talking with him, like, I was saying, yeah, I think that creativity is the best deck. And he was like, nah, I don't think it is. It's just a bit too inconsistent at what it does. It can have mana issues if you don't draw fetch lands on time. Like, it's obviously a powerful deck with a bunch of powerful cards. Nobody's denying that. But I spoke to a bunch of players whom I respect. Stefan, I was talking a bunch with Andrea Piemonti or Piegonti, was talking with Max Magiker, and they were all playing creativity at some point in time. Max even played day one of creativity, I think. And then he played the team side event with Merktide, played them first round. And like, I've never played creativity myself, so I only had this experience from the other side of the board. And like, to me, it always seemed like my creativity opponents always have everything. And like, when a deck has everything, it's really, really, really good because it's just a bunch of overpowered cards. But it's still, you don't have that much card selection, especially early on. So it's not like you will carve out Ren into Fable into interaction and combo all the time. Like, it doesn't happen. And I've played against creativity, I think 4 times during the weekend. 2 times in the main event and twice in the side event. And I went 3-0 and 1 unfinished because in the team event my team already won, and then we were like 1-1 in our match. Like, I was playing the more controlling version of Merktide with no small creatures other than Ragavan and Archmage Charms, and I was winning those games on like turn 20 or something. Like, actually those games that people will tell you, oh, you have to pressure creativity or they will just win. And like, I don't know, I drew more cards than they did, or had cards that were more impactful in spots that mattered, and they just kind of flooded out because in the long run, like, Ren and 6 will just flood you out so often. And I don't know, it just seemed that like they will have those, like, if you only play like 4 turns of the game and you have those, or like 5 or 6 turns, like if you play a fairly short game with creativity, like you have your engine and you hit your land drops and then you combo and then you win, like it's a higher percentage, I think, for you to like have what you need to have, because sometimes you can just manage with Ren and creativity, no Fable. Sometimes you can manage with Fable and creativity, no Ren. Sometimes you will even win with Fable and Ren and just a bunch of removal spells. But the longer the game goes on and the more like cards you draw in your deck, and you run out of dwarf tokens at some point, and it's not trivial for you to creativity, or even you creativity and someone deals with your Archons, or you just draw them and they are countered. Like, if you draw more cards with creativity, it like shows how disjointed the deck is even further, I would say. Don't know if that makes much sense, but that was my impression of creativity as a deck. So I'm back on the train of Merktide being the best deck. I think that creativity is, of course, a good deck, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I would put it as high as I thought it is, like, even a month ago. Conversely, I think that Rhinos are great. And I think that Rhinos are a deck that was like down-talked for a fairly long amount of time. I think that it took a while for people to figure out how to beat Merktide with Rhinos. We saw Isaac Bullwinkle and then Oliver Tomajko, who teamed up with Isaac, just playing 4 mystical disputes in the main deck, which seems like just a good thing to be doing, to be honest. Like, it's good in multiple matchups. Even if it's a bad mana league, it's still an interaction. You can pitch it to Force, you can pitch it to... I guess you don't really play Subtlety these days, I think. But you can pitch it to Force. You can board it out. Also, like, if you execute your combo, then it doesn't really matter that you have a dead card. Like, if you put two Rhinos into play, you can just beat them down, and having this one dispute usually doesn't matter. Like, of course, this card has downsides, and somebody will draw it and you'll think, oh, why I don't have, I don't know, another Brazen Borrower or Bonecrusher Giant or another Fury, whatever. But I think that it's a very clean way to answer the problem of the Merctide matchup. And also it answers Ledger Shredder in the Merctide matchup, which I think it's very, very important. And also against like other decks. Like it's not the only deck with Shredders, right? You're playing against Breach decks. You are playing against I guess it's just Breach, right? It's Breach and Merctide. But still, like all those cards that were supposed to be good against Merctide, like I don't know, Borrower and the card Merctide Regent, Borrower or Dead Gun or something like that. Those were cards that were specifically engineered to deal with Merctide Regent, and they are not very good against Shredder, which is the best card against Rhinos probably, because you just connive, so you can outgrow Rhinos fairly fast. You can outgrow Endurance, which is also a good way to attack Merctide. So yeah, I'm quite high on Rhinos. And yeah, like, well, I guess I'm kind of starting this from the back because
like I wanted to say that maybe you should say what is in tier A and then talk about this like top 3 decks. But
because I just started talking about them in the right order because it is in fact Merctide, Creativity, and Rhinos. But I like midway through my rant I realized that I forget to actually list them, so that's my bad. So yep. Tier A, we have 6 decks. It's Merctide, Creativity, Rhinos, Scam, Hammer, and Yawgmoth. We already covered Merctide to some extent. We mostly covered Creativity, to be frank. So just
the only thing I want to say about Creativity is that right now the 5-color version is clearly superior to Timur. Like more and more players are opting for playing Line and Binding.
By far the most popular, yes.
And while Timur version has some upsides and can be a good choice in certain meta games. For instance, if you want to play more tempo-oriented games, not the ones that rely more on like having good cards, then maybe going Timur is better. But like all the big tournaments played in the last 6 weeks were not won, but at the top we saw only 5-color. I'm also curious if the addition of the new battle from March of Machine,
Invasion of Ergamon, the red-green battle, right?
Yeah, that creates a treasure, so it works nicely with Creativity Engine and has a discard draw effect. So it works nicely with Persist and Reunion that we already have. Maybe there's a way to play Jant, but like we said earlier, like the lack of spell pierce can be a bit too much, and maybe that's only what I would like to see. But in reality, like playing a more streamlined version, not the version with like Persist, Archons, etc. Is the way to go. We'll see.
Yep. Yep. Like as I said, like I started talking about Merctide, but then I very quickly switched to Creativity. One other point about Merctide that I think is very, very important, and I don't think I've ever said that really here is, well, something I kind of came to the conclusion when I was testing for Prague. I was playing Modo for like 8 hours a day for, I don't know, 2 weeks, which isn't something... This isn't something I've done since I was, I don't know, like 23 or something and still studying. And it slowly tore my soul apart, as playing 8 hours of any video game would do to you on daily basis. But I ended up playing the deck that I already mentioned, the control version that I think first Piegonti posted on Twitter, then I started working on it. And I've had a really great time playing the deck. And it brings me to a point that I think is important when it comes to Merctide or any deck that can be highly customizable, I guess, with a lot of high-powered cards, which is something that is more and more popular these days, I think. Because what's your printing such a strong card these days, like so many strong cards that you build your deck, and you build a deck like, I don't know, like any good stuff deck really, like Merktide, Red Black in Pioneer. We were earlier talking, before we started recording, we were talking about creativity in Pioneer. And there are so many versions and cards you can fit into this deck. And at this point, if you have like, I don't know, have 60 slots in your main deck, and there are like, I don't know, 70 or 75 cards you can fit in that deck, and all of those cards are good, great even. I think that the most important, much more important thing than what you should, like what will give you this smaller, this very, very small advantage over the other versions for this particular weekend, which is also very hard to predict, especially in such an open format as Modern, is to play the version of the deck that you will play the best. Like, I'm not saying play bad decks if you will play them well. Like, there is a reason I haven't played Fairies in Modern in like 5 years or something, even though I love this deck so much, and I think I'm very good at playing it, but it's also garbage. It's like not playable. And to much of my dismay, of course. But like when you are playing this, like it's basically what Sodek said about creativity as well, I think. Like if you think that you are more proficient at playing this like more tempo-oriented style with Rag, as I know that Yiriel, our residing mystical teaching expert on creativity, tested 5-color for a couple of weeks, and then he switched back to Timur, and he said that it just fits his playstyle better. He knows this deck in and out, and he'll get advantage with this deck in places where I don't think many people will get advantage. And I think it's very important that, for example, another person who recently succeeded with basically their own deck was Respect the Cat, who won the tournament in Prague, over 1,000 people, as Sodek said, and he was playing Keruga. And he's basically the only person who's playing Keruga. And he just spent months and months streaming it, tuning it, and he got rewarded with a great finish. And I think that's like, these days, you have so many great cards, especially once again in those good stuff decks. Just play what you know you will play the best. And
yeah, but like this works only if like again the card pool for your archetype is big. For instance, I don't see rhinos being that flexible because like there are
of course,
much smaller card pool to choose from.
Of course,
and
it mostly
cards are much better from each other.
Yes, it's mostly when you are playing like good stuff decks or maybe non-linear decks, I guess, because I guess you can do the same thing with like, I don't know, some bridge decks, maybe Prowess. Prowess is basically a bridge deck these days. But yeah, like over the years of playing Magic and building decks, fairly often, like I was like posting a deck list or something, and then Sodek or some other friends would ask me, like, do you think that this is the best deck, the best Merktide list, for example, or the best Merktide list for you? And I tend to say, no, I think this is the best Merktide deck. But what I realize is what I mean, and what I think you should mean is it's the best deck for me. Because like I know people who would prefer to play much more aggressive style, and I think you have, as a player, you have certain tendencies that will just nudge you towards some direction. For example, I was talking to Menguchi, and Menguchi said, "Oh yeah, I always board out channelers in all my matches, basically." And like, if you want to play this deck, like it's basically about having a coherent plan. If your idea of winning the game involves like going long, then build your deck to go long. If you think the best way to win is to tempo out your opponent and you want to play into it and it plays into your strength as a player, just do this. So play what you want, and like as long as your cards are good. Don't play garbage cards and garbage decks, I guess, but find a good deck that you vibe with, basically, is what I'm saying. And be happy. And, don't play dredge.
What?
All
Sorry.
right, we're back. And now we will talk about red-black, Rakdos midrange, scam, however you want to call the deck, which for a couple of months seemed like it could crack being like a top 3 deck or so. Now it kind of slid back. It's still a respectable tier 1 deck, but I think it's a bit less popular than it was a couple of weeks or months ago. And also, I don't really know why, I guess. I guess the Merktide matchup is not that great. And maybe...
The matchup with creativity is bad.
Okay.
If the creativity goes long, then Scam struggles to win.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
The only way to win with Scam is just, really fast start with the Scam. And
I guess...
Or maybe Blood Moon. But
yeah, I guess that's... Scam was also a deck that was kind of good against Hammer, I think. That would be my prediction, at least. And Hammer declining a bit in popularity made like it all makes sense. Like creativity is good against Hammer and it's good against Scam, so it gets popular. So Hammer goes kind of lower and then Scam goes kind of lower as well, both because a bad matchup or somewhat bad matchup in creativity goes up and a good matchup in Hammer goes down. And that's how it is usually.
Yeah, it's also kind of important to note that the presence of Herba Scam in the metagame has changed or maybe at least forced other decks to evolve in a way to not randomly lose to the most popular Blood Moon deck. Because like Murktide and Blood Moon, it can happen, but not every Murktide player plays Blood Moons nowadays.
Oh yeah, I think it's rather unpopular to have main deck Blood Moons. I know that Menguchi is a big proponent of Blood Moon in the main deck, but for the most part, people have moved from playing main deck Blood Moons, unlike Scam.
And Rakdos midrange, either Scam, is the only deck that plays Blood Moon main deck nowadays, and
in large quantities.
Yes, like 2, even 3 copies. So if Scam is that high, so for example, Rhinos had to switch from 5-color lane binding version to Timur version that's not only good versus opposing Blood Moon, but can play Blood Moon themselves. So that was a huge difference, and like this transition made the Rhinos, a great choice, because if Rhinos don't be stopped by fast Blood Moon, then the matchup versus Scam should be okay.
And what's
I don't want to say that it's really good for Rhinos, but like the plan of having like double 4/4 matches up nicely versus what we are trying to do. And like if they have this card, you have 8 cascades plus 2 top decks, so it's relatively easy to rebuild out of nowhere. So,
yeah, exactly. And recently, most Rhinos lists also play a couple copies of Merktide Regent, which is also a card that's historically been pretty great against Scam. And also, like, I saw some people cutting Dotty Voidwalkers and playing Bloodtide Harvester and Scam. I know.
Please do it.
I know that Dingo did it for a challenge. I think Canister did it as well. And in general, I would say that, like, from a perspective of a person who never played Scam in his whole life, I like the change. Like, I think that having a card that's both red and black to pitch for both of your Scam creatures is pretty great. I think that Bloodtide Harvester is just a very strong card on its own. It's literally the best card ever for Standard and Pioneer, so more or less, it's more or less the best card ever.
I have to agree. Like this card is so important. Like if you look at it at first, it looks kind of bad, but like the more you play against it or play with it, you see how versatile it is. Like it can act as removal, as a good tempo spell. It can make your hand better.
Yeah, I think
as an ETB, so you can be blink with Fable. What else you want to see?
I think it's kinda because those type of cards in the past either costed 3 mana, like Rogue Refiner, and they were still very good in Standard, to the point that it had to be banned, or they were like smaller bodies, or they just drew this card, or this card drew when they entered. And the fact that like Harvester is making a token that you can later use to enable Revolt, or you can sacrifice it to other things. There are so many things you can do with this. And it's basically a free-powered Traben Inspector, right? And free power is like, you can actually clog with it somewhat well. So, yep.
Yeah, 3 is much more than 1.
and more than you think it is, more than 2, basically. Like, the difference between 2 and 3 is fairly large as well.
Okay, is the difference between 2 and 3 larger than 1 and 2?
I don't think so. I don't think it is, but
On a
I think
drop,
it's...
I think it is. But like if we compare 1 power and 2 power on 1 drop, and then 2 power and 3 power on 2 drop, then like I would much rather have a 2 power 1 drop.
Oh yeah. I think the difference between 1 power and 2 power is bigger than 2 power and 3 power. Of course, it's just maths. But also, I think the difference between 2 power and 3 power is bigger than people think it is. Like, I think the fact that, like, if Harvester was 2/2, it would be a much worse creature, I think.
Yes.
And so moving back to Scam, while I think that Harvester is a better card than Voidwalker overall, and I think you should play it, like, from completely unexperienced perspective of mine.
Please do.
In a matchup against Rhinos, you'd rather have Voidwalker probably, because you can
Yes.
you can just recast Rhinos and have 4/4 of your own. So that's another reason why Scam kind of fell down, I guess, on the list, because Rhinos went up, and it seems like it's already not that bad of a matchup for Rhinos, and they adapted to main deck Blood Moons, and they have Murktide Regents, and if Scam cuts Voidwalkers, maybe not every Scam player, but some Scam players, it's all good news for Rhinos, basically.
Yeah, that's true. Like, also, like I'm obviously kind of joking when I say, like, please do it, please don't play Voidwalker. But the reality is that, like, many of Scam's good matchups are because how good Voidwalker is versus them. And all Cascade decks, random
Yawgmoth.
like Yawgmoth, random situations with Murktide. I know it can be killed with removal, but if you don't have, like, if you have only one piece of removal, they play Ragavan into Voidwalker, then suddenly you'll have like problems with like casting Murktide on time, etc. So, like, I see the upsides. The main upside, okay, probably more than one. I count 3. The first one is that it's a red-black spell compared to double-black, so it works better with Blood Moon if you happen to not have 2 swamps early, which happen quite often, in my opinion. Second is that it can block. Blocking is secretly great, and I don't feel that. I don't like. What's better, the ability to block or the ability to have an unblockable body?
I think ability to block.
I think so too. And the blood token, letting you dig to action in mid-late game.
Like, I think it all boils down to the fact that Blood-Eye Harvester is a card that's better when things don't go your way. Like, if you have a great draw and you are Thoughtsizing or Griefing with Voidwalker on the table and you are snagging their 5-drops and casting it for free and everything, that's great. But if you like mulligan and then you just need this card of an appropriate color for your Fury of the top, or you need to change one of those lands in your hand into a good card with a blood token, or
a Blood Moon into, a real card in the matchup when it's...
Yes, or you need to kill that creature that they have because you don't have removal spells, because you, once again, mulligan, and you like grieve them on turn 1, but then you have to kill something that they drew off the top. Like, I think that's definitely a lower ceiling card. I don't think anybody will argue that Doti Voidwalker has higher ceiling, but I think that having a high floor is more important than having high ceiling in general. And I basically think that like the reason that red-black decks are basically everywhere nowadays is that Bloodtide Harvester and Fable are so good at bailing you out of bad situations and are so good at like filtering your cards that are not needed away and just help you like basically make your draws work. And I would just play those cards if I was interested in playing this deck. Okay, want to move to Hammer?
Yes.
Yeah. I think most of the things that we said about Scam also applies to Hammer, like why it kind of fell down on the list. And yeah, like I don't have anything super special to say about Hammer. I still think that playing, like being a proficient Hammer pilot, especially in a paper tournament, is one of the best, if not the best place to be in. I think if you want to tear through the sea of mediocre Murktide players, I think Hammer is still your best bet if you are well versed at Hammer. Because I think it might be the matchup on the top of the format with the biggest difference in win rate depending on your skill. Like when Yorion was legal, this matchup used to be 4-color, I think. 4-color versus blue-red was the matchup that like 4-color players who played only against like bad or mediocre Murktide players were like, yeah, this matchup is unlosable. And then, I don't know, I was playing the matchup or other people who can play the deck well play the matchups. And of course, it wasn't an easy matchup. Like just like Hammer isn't an easy matchup. But I was winning, like, I don't know, probably slightly above 50% of my matches. And I think it's similar with Hammer. Like, you should be scared of Hammer as a Murktide player. I think it's a smart thing to do, to be scared of Hammer and to have a lot of sideboard cards against Hammer. And yeah, so with Hammer, like with Murktide adapting, also I think it's much more like it was always the biggest reason to play Hammer. I think that it has good matchup against the most popular deck in the format. Of course, there are like the other reasons, like the deck is inherently powerful and stuff like that. And there's a Saga as a messed up card, sure, but having this good matchup on top of the format was a very strong argument in Hammer's favor. And now maybe it's not gone, but I think people, A, learned to play against Hammer a bit better, even if they are still not great. And B, they actually have a lot of sideboard cards against Hammer. A lot more than they used to have, I think. Like, it's pretty stock to have, like, 2 copies of Dress Down and, like, 3 copies of Engineering Explosives. And it's just... You just have so much cards against Hammer. And I think that's important.
And there's, like, NG's Explosives are also really good versus Rhinos. So, like, the fact that you have cards versus Hammer, it's not only for Hammer. There are more matchups that can be covered with.
Yeah, like 3 decks from the top 6 decks of the format are decks that Explosives are actively good against. Creativity, Rhinos, and Hammer. Some people will try to juke Explosives off of Creativity by sideboarding out Creativities. I know that Daryl Ayers is doing that with a good success, but I think that once people know that you are boarding out Creativities, it's just so exploitable as a strategy from Murktide perspective, or like from any deck perspective. Like if you know that your opponent has no Creativities and they can't like just win off of 4 mana, it gives you so much wiggly room. Like, and also I don't like that he cuts Spell Pierces against Murktide. I think Spell Pierces is just such a great card in that matchup. But it's not important right now. Like, points being made, Explosives is very good, I think. And it's a card that you just should play in your sideboard if your deck allows you to do so.
Okay, and outside that, Hammer just a great deck and really good at punishing like cute players who likes to play their own brew. So like be prepared all the time. Okay, moving on to Yavmot, our last deck from tier A. Yavmot continues to impress me. Like every time I think that this is the end of Yavmot, then like I see the results and the Yavmod is still there. The big problem for Yavmod is how the matchup versus Rhinos and Scam look. But the matchup versus Mercury and Creativity versus Mercury and Creativity is somewhat okay. Some would say that it's 50-50. Others who say that one of these decks is slightly advantaged, but overall,
I think they're all in the like close category.
yeah, close.
Oh.
Like and the biggest reason to play Yamut is that Hammer is like really easy matchup for Yamut.
It's a good matchup, yeah, for sure.
So
I think the biggest problem for Yawgmoth is that if you are not named Zerg, you won't win as much.
yeah, that's like being Zerg obviously helps a lot. I also really like his approach of the Yavmod sideboard to add creature removal spells. I don't know if he did it as the first Yavmod player on Modo, but like having like 3 or even more copies like of Murderous Cat, I know that Zerg is a huge believer in Murderous Cat.
I know that he's excited about Pylon as well to try it out after it's released. So, yep.
Yes, it looks incredible. Also, can kill planeswalkers. I don't know if it's that impactful for the deck, but can matter. And Survey 2 is like I feel it can be used nicely in the.
It's just a nice upside to have. It's basically you have a 1 mana unconditional kill spell so much of the time.
Sometimes even 0 mana.
Or 0, yes.
You can like insects are both colors, I believe. Yes.
Yep. Or you can draw your Blood Artist.
So
or Hapatra. Snakes are 2 colors as well, I think. From Hapatra.
Sorry?
Snakes from Hapatra are 2 colors as well.
That's
so, yeah.
true, that's true.
But,
yeah. Of course.
But if you have Yawgmoth, then you usually win. So.
Yeah, that's true. But deck is really good, and like
I think I think that will actually be quite important because I kind of dismissed Yawgmoth as a black creature to use to convoke, because usually when you have Yawgmoth in play, you can just kill your opponent or create this massive advantage. But I think it will be kind of important that like you put Yawgmoth in play, you have no mana, but you just sacrifice a bunch of your creatures, and you have enough creatures to convoke Pylon after you drew like 10 cards against, I don't know, a very large Murktide Regent, or against your Hammer opponent who's about to kill you, or I don't know, Amulet Titan or whatever.
Yeah,
like
I feel that the dream is to have multiple, like not even multiple, like 2 Undying creatures that got tapped for Horde of Calling. You go for find the Yawgmoth, sacrifice, draw them cards, and they enter the battlefield untapped. So then you use these creatures for combo.
Oh yeah, that's of course like the best case scenario for sure. But like how often you will have like exactly what you need, which is Yawgmoth, 2 Undying creatures. That's not super hard to assemble. And then you have I don't know, like Wall of Roots lying around because it doesn't tap for mana. You just put a counter on it. And you just have.
Then you probably go for Blood Artist and win.
Like if you draw Chord of Calling, yes, but if you don't draw Chord of Calling, you have those additional top decks that can help you for 0 mana, which is I think really important.
That's cool.
Okay, B tier or anything else you want to say about Yawgmoth?
B tier.
We're moving to B tier, and B tier is as per usual kinda big, but this time it's I think smaller, which is very good for me when I'm making graphics, because I hate when B tier is super large because it looks ugly. But on the more important note, here are decks that we will cover in B tier this time. We have no bad cards breach. We have Tron, Living End, Amulet, Elementals, Jund Saga, Prowess, and Burn, which is a Sodek deftly counted 8 decks.
I didn't track my fingers, so didn't know.
I didn't track your fingers as well, and I counted it myself quite deftly as well. Okay, I guess we'll start from the top. No bad cards breach, fair breach, however you want to call it. It's basically every breach deck that doesn't have Grinding Station and also doesn't have Monastery Swiftspear in it, because that's prowess at this point. And yeah, like I think those decks are, man, I think they are just worse than Merktide so often. And I think the matchups in which, like the one matchup, I think it's kind of why they emerged into the scene initially, is that especially when you are splashing white, I think you are getting a bunch of percentages against Hammer, namely. Because you get access to Prismatic Ending, to Wear and Tear, which are just great cards. Because, like, for the most part, Merktide struggles against Urza's Saga. And having this white splash that helps you against Urza's Saga is definitely helpful. But overall, there are still same points that I will say about this deck. I think the fact that it's so bad against Endurance makes it just a worse choice than Merktide. Especially like you are so close to Merktide in like how your deck looks and what cards are good against you, that you are just balancing it kind of all wrong, I think. Because like as I've said, you maybe not solved your Hammer matchup with Merktide, but you made it acceptable by just being super scared of it and running like, I don't know, 100 cards for it.
Free explosives and a bunch of removal.
Yeah, like free explosives. But once again, explosives is just a great card. And with addition, like because you can play so many explosives and still not be like punished for that, I think you can probably play 4 copies of explosives in your deck if you really want to. Do you want to play 4 copies? I don't think so. I think splitting your cards against Hammer is important, especially for Piffing Needle. Because if you have just 4 explosives, then you get got by Piffing Needle fairly often. But yeah, like those were the matchups that you, I think, gained the most in as a breach deck against like the field, basically. And maybe you were better in the Merktide mirror, but now Merktide starts playing spell, like a bunch of people play 1 or 2 spell snares, and then you are getting somewhat better against breach as well. Like in general, I don't think that you should play breach over Merktide unless that's what you vibe with. But I think
8-8 better than maybe you'll cast some spells.
Yeah, like of course, like I think once again, breach has as a card, Underworld Breach has so high of a ceiling compared to whatever Merktide can do. Like there will be games when you just lose to a card Underworld Breach out of some deck as Merktide, because they will play Breach and they will draw 3 cards or kill your creatures and draw 2 cards or whatever. And it happened to me multiple times against No Bad Cards Breach, against Grixis Shadow, against Prowess, against Combo Breach. Like you will just lose sometimes to Underworld Breach because it's such a messed up card. But once again, while the ceiling is higher, I think the floor is considerably lower. And I think elevating your floor is much more important than elevating your ceiling. At least in Magic. Don't know if that's how it goes in like construction. If you're building your house, I don't know how it works there. So don't quote me on that.
Let's focus. Let's focus on the next deck from the list.
Next deck is very surprising.
Yes,
because it's Tron. It's mono green Tron. It's not mono blue Tron. Even though Shock Troopa usually has been recently has been winning a bunch.
Veranix is so hot right now. Like,
yeah.
When I'm checking the list, I was like, Shock Troopa again? It wasn't a one-time scam. Like someone lost the internet connection in winning, whatever. Yeah, like they had like really good results. But
why do you think so?
Sorry?
Why do you think that mono green is so high? Like why Tron is high?
That's a good question.
Apparently,
I don't know.
Apparently, it has good matchup against Merktide. At least that's what data that Aliquanto shown on Twitter suggested, which seems super counterproductive to me, because you are a deck with Clock, Counter Spells, and Blood Moon, which seems like exactly what should be good against Tron.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I don't think the sample was super high as well. It just.
Okay,
I don't know.
let's talk about the deck maybe, because the deck has changed a bit
Yes.
since we maybe not last time we spoke about it, but like the most iconic card for Mono Green Tron was for years card liberated. Like you collect a Tron, play a like 7 mana Planeswalker, and hope that's good enough.
Yes.
And we like in for years it was like the most terrifying thing you could do in modern. Then it was a still solid thing, and nowadays it's not even that good. Like there are other better cards you can play. For
You're not even
instance,
playing 4 copies, right?
yes, that's the like I want to say, like other Karn the Great Creator is a like staple for of all the time, while Karn Liberated is played maybe as a 2 copy, sometimes 3, but it's really hard to see 4 of them. Mostly because a card, the Great Creator, is so good. Also, you need to have space for interactive cards. So, for example, Dismember,
Warping Whale.
sometimes Warping Whale, sometimes Relic of Progenitus. Like depends to what they want to do. And there are other solid top end cards, mostly Cityscape Leveler. That's a new thing that happens to
New.
be good, yeah. And
Half a year
it's
old. New
destroy
card.
up to one target non-land permanent. So maybe that's the reason why it's good versus Merktide. Because like if you try to engineer a situation where you have Merktide and the counter spell up for their payoff, and they go Cityscape Leveler, and on a cast trigger they exile your Merktide. So even if they counter it, then you can unearth it next turn
Yes. Yes, like,
and exile
yep.
yet another thing. So maybe there's the plan, yeah. So overall, Tron, despite like the printing of Boseju, because like I've like when Boseju got printed and I saw
Sodek
uh,
wailed. Sodek was so mad when Boseju was printed because back in the
yeah
day he was Belcher or Oops main and he was just
yeah
playing those decks and he was like, "Wee! I don't believe they printed such a card. Wee! My decks are unplayable. Wee!" That's how
yeah
Sodek was
that was like
behaving
that was exactly me.
for like 2 weeks or something. He was just
Like
so upset.
I'm sometimes like once in a while I got triggered again after like Vren and Boseju happens to me.
Yes, that's the same way I get triggered from time to time when I get, I don't know, Veil of Summer really good or Teferi really good. I was like, fuck
That's
that!
not
Like,
fun.
what's that? What's that?
I want to play game like my way of playing Magic, like unfair one. Uh, but okay, coming back to Mono Green Tron, maybe that's a good Merktide matchup. Maybe the matchup versus Creativity
Like,
is good.
that's the thing. I can't
I
see
think
it really, especially if you cut on Karn Liberated, because I think that's the matchup where Karn Liberated is actually great. Like, they go turn 2 Ren and you go LOL turn 3 Karn, exile your land, and you need 4 lands. Sure, you can rebuy lands or fetch lands with Ren, but I'll Stone Raid you twice, and even if you hit earlier Ren drops, I will cast Cityscape Leveler next or something else. And yeah, like, I think that without attacking their lands, creativity is not that great of a matchup. But maybe I don't know. You go for Cityscape Leveler, you kill their Ren or their Fable. They play creativity, they get 1 Archon, then you unearth your Leveler and you kill the Archon with the trigger.
okay. Do you feel
Maybe.
do you feel that 1 Archon is enough to kill Tron? I don't
Yeah,
think
that's
so.
what I'm saying. That maybe 1 Archon is just not enough so often.
Yeah. Maybe you need two, and even if you have two, they have Cityscape Leveler or like Work Mode Engine that breaks into other copies, and you
Or
have Oblivion
Ulamog.
Stone or Ulamog. Like I think
Yeah.
that they are enough, like solid counterplays for the Tron player. Yeah, maybe there's a time to play Tron.
Maybe Tron is actually good. Who knows?
Maybe I like always had a like soft spot for
Oh,
this deck.
Also, it has unlosable matchup against Living End because it has 3 copies of Warping Whale and 3 copies of Relic of Progenitus, as
If I
Sodek
have it,
mentioned many times.
if
3
I have
copies
it,
of both of those cards, and you can't ever lose against Living End. That's what Sodek swore for like months when he was playing Living End, that it's an
yes,
unwinnable
that's true.
matchup.
That's true. I still strongly believe that that's true about the matchup. If they
Okay,
have these
so
2 cards, it's super hard to win.
I guess that's
Super
a
hard.
very smooth segue to Living End, which is a next deck on our list.
Nice.
And aside from having an unwinnable Tron matchup against prepared opponents, what else can we say about Living End? I guess not much.
Like uphill battle versus Merktide, good matchup versus Creativity and Rhinos. Bad matchup versus Scam mostly because of Doughty Voidwalker, so please play Blood Tide Harvester. Good versus Hammer, Simon Bad versus Yavmod. Like in theory, like I still find a good reason why Living End got out of the meta for a couple of months, and now it's coming back. Now people realize that the deck isn't going anywhere, and it's still a solid portion because like I can understand the thinking of, okay, if you want to win your bad matchups, you need to get your Grief plus Phone plus Terra Free Cascade with Cyclers early. But if you have it, like it feels unlosable. But if you fail to find one of your puzzles, then it can be rough. So maybe like the amount of hate around, especially with Rhinos at the top, like people uh, can be more inclined to play Cherries of the Void. Although, like I see more explosives than cherries nowadays because explosives can cover Rhinos Creativity Hammer, while cherries covers only Rhinos and like Living at some extent.
And all those people
So
playing Gravedigger's Cage against Creativity, that's unwinnable for Living End.
like it's like Gravity Sketch even doesn't work versus Creativity, yeah?
Like, it
Or it was a
requires them
joke,
to
yeah?
pay 1 more mana.
No. Like your cards goes from exile.
Are you 100% sure?
I will read the card for you. Okay. Indomitable Creativity. Destroy X target artifacts or creatures. For experiment, destroy this way. X controller reveals cards from the top of library until they get an artifact or a creature. And exiles that card.
Okay.
Those players put the card exiled
Okay.
onto the battlefield. So
Okay.
it doesn't work.
So it doesn't
never.
work both ways because you can
Yes.
both target it and okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
you know.
I have no idea now how Living End is not the best deck ever.
Washed up Jędrek strikes
Like-
again.
Okay. All right. So we're back after another
Again.
technical difficulty again, and I'm still washed in terms of knowing how the cards work, I guess, in the game that I'm kind of playing for a living. So,
Reading
good times.
is really hard,
Reading is very, very fucking hard. But yeah, like now I have no idea why Living End is not the best deck ever. And I can't even make the joke about Gravedigger's Cage not working against Living End. Like, I guess it's just like people will have those Flusterstorms for Rhinos and Creativity, and some people will still have Chalices in their deck. And there are like those freaks with quad hallowed moonlight to beat Creativity. I don't know. It just seemed like a bunch of random hate working against other things that also work against Living End to me. So I don't know.
Like it's comparing to Rhinos, the Living End is much more all in.
Much more susceptible to hate.
Yeah, so like Rhinos like can try again and again and again. Like all you need to do is to cast Cascade and have Rhinos, while the Living End has to like use other spheres of game. Yeah, you need to have time to cycle. You need to have graveyard. You also like need to have a critical mass of these cyclers. So also like countering Rhinos isn't the biggest problem because like you can still deal damage with regular creatures, while in Living End it's not. Like it is possible, but it's much worse because you don't have removal compared to Rhinos that has removal. There are some differences, but we all know that. So Living End right now got some results. It's a solid choice, not as good as the top tier decks in my opinion, but like as long as you like playing card for Magic and win unwinnable positions out of nowhere.
It's probably the best
Go
like
for it.
pure combo deck in the format, right?
Yeah, like let's define pure combo. Like is Hammer a pure combo? It's
No,
Living End a pure combo. Like Living End also it requires you to combo off to win most of the times, but like the
that's how
amount
I
of
would define pure combo.
yeah, but amount of protection, like pure combo for me is Belger. Like you
No,
don't
no,
have
no.
any other
That's
like
a glass cannon combo.
hmm. There's a glass
For
cannon
me, like
combos.
pure combo is like Doomsday or like Storm and Legacy. And those decks have like Duresses and Force of Wills and Dazes and stuff. Like you are allowed to have good cards in your combo deck, so like, and it still be a pure combo deck. I
Okay.
know it's shocking to you that you don't
Yeah,
have to play a bunch of fucking Stink with Imps and nothing else, but
Liquid teams are OP.
no, Stink with Imp is actually quite broken. But I
Death
don't know,
touch
like
on
Silver
the
Smoked
flyer.
Ghouls, whatever.
Okay, goal is bad. Okay.
Okay,
Moving on.
yeah, to another somewhat pure combo deck, pure-ish combo deck in Amulet on number 10. Um, After once again, this is our second installment of this series after Phyrexa got released, and with it, Mycosynth Gardens got added to Amulet, and we still didn't see like a big breakthrough that Amulet was supposed to have. And I guess at this point we can agree that it just won't happen once again. So yeah, I don't
We can
know.
create maybe a template for memes that
Yeah, I
okay,
think the best
new card for Amulet.
yeah.
Good to
The
look
best thing that Amulet has going for it is that from time to time it can play Bojuka Bog against Sodek, and Sodek will get tilted. So
like
that's all. That's
even
all I
when
have to
I
say about Amulet.
even when I like for example watch streams or like watch other players got Bojuka boxed, even if it's like not impactful at all. Like okay, I exile your like
You just see
three
this
random
card and
cards.
you have this reaction.
I like so much anger is in me then in this exact moment that it's quite strange. Okay, but Amulet, Mycosynth Gardens. In theory, it looked like an Amulet 9 to 12. So the idea of having multiple amulets on turn 3 was even easier to achieve, but the reality was that like it's not the card amulet. Like it's the card that's an extra amulet if you already have amulet on board, and it's quite easy to exploit
Yes, and it
because
costs mana, and it stone rains you.
yes,
It
like
just has. Once
like
again, it's a card that is great where everything goes well for you.
yes.
And it's fairly often lackluster when you are like disrupted, which is pretty common in a format where most popular decks have like Blood Moons and Counter Magic and other sorts of interaction and
There's a
Boseiju with Ren.
one mana removal spell that kills your payoff.
Yeah,
Unholy Heat is
like
quite strong, yeah? After
yes.
all these years. So people are trying Dryad-less versions, just rely heavily on turn 3 Titan with double amulet. So this equals 32 damage if you do everything right. But at the end of the day, like Dryad version and like the raw power of the card with Valakut came victorious, and
And it
people are
also
more on Dryad version right now. Like Jose Moniz writes a primer plus sideboard guide about it, so he'll know better than,
yeah,
than
like
us.
once again, the same pattern of resiliency just being better than high ceiling. Like your deck needs to be resilient to succeed in modern, I think.
Yeah,
Okay, next deck.
next deck.
We have elementals, which is once again like an umbrella category for basically
Omnat
any
Pipes.
deck with Omnath, but also Risen Reef. So like any deck that has any 4-color deck that has more elementals than just Omnath and Incarnations will get qualified as elementals, and that also includes like those true elementals deck with Flamegin Harbinger and stuff like that.
Nice.
But yeah, like the reason that elementals are good are still the same things. It's still Solitude and Fury are messed up, and Omnath is a good glue holding it all together and pitching to everything, and just a bunch of good cards working together cohesively, somewhat cohesively.
I think that the big upside of this elemental decks is the Elesh Norn that got printed in Pyrexia
Yes.
or will be one. The ability to like go over the top over basically anything, because like once you have it, your Solitude exiles 2 cards.
Creativity doesn't work.
Creative, like it does so much things, and it's hard to deal with because of 7 toughness.
And it has such a big ass. 7 toughness. 7 toughness is just so much.
Okay.
It's so fucking much.
Borrow
It's no. It's way off screen. Way off screen, I think.
so borrow one hand. It's my this big.
Oh, yeah, 300 kilometers from Warsaw to Poznań.
So elemental still can struggle against faster starts of the decks. I also believe that Tron should go over the top.
Oh, definitely. I don't think it's close.
Still. So there are some like problematic things, but I feel that the 4-color deck is okay against Murktide. I assume that it heavily depends to the build and to how both players know how to play the matchup.
Yes, and also like I think that why Elementals is not demolishing Murktide is the reason that Elementals is so low on the list in general is that it's not a very stable deck, I think. It's a deck that has no cantrips. If you don't draw Ren and 6, it's hard to manage all your colors all the time. You have somewhat painful mana base with fetch lands and shock lands. And like, if it's another one of those decks that has a fairly low floor when it comes to like, if you are not starting with 7 and your like enabler cards in like Ren and Omnath, if they don't work out, you are kind of screwed. And like that's why people have been adding the cards like I don't know Fable to the deck, and I like that idea of playing like 4-color decks. They might not necessarily be lumped against as elementals, but I think they sometimes are because sometimes you are playing both Fable and Risen Reef. Like in general, I do think that once again, decreasing your variance is good, increasing your floor is good. That's like the theme of this episode, just me saying repeatedly that it's good to have stable deck in a format as
stable,
as resilient as and as powerful as Modern. Just a bunch of good cards.
What's also interesting is that all these Omnath piles are very different from each other. So you can see versions with Kahira, with Keruga, without any companions, with 80 card decks, without any companions, because why not?
With 69 cards.
Yeah, like,
nice.
like I don't know where the meme stops and when the reality starts in the Omnath world. So that can also be a reason why it's maybe not underplayed but underrepresented at the top tables, because in my opinion the development of the successful archetype is that there's one player who makes a breakthrough, then other players copy the list and start to realize why it was a breakthrough, and then like more other players see that not only this one guy made a breakthrough but there are others successful ones. Like this was exactly how Scam did at the top. Yeah, at the very beginning, Scam was a funny deck that sometimes you can grief turn 1, it will be super funny, and then Young Dingo probably started playing it more. Yeah, and and it popularized the deck, and like more and more players started playing it, and all of a sudden it became a tier 1 strategy. Uh, so I feel that if there was only one dominate elementals build, the deck would be a bit more popular and a bit more successful. Right now, I like there are like too many differences. For instance, if you want to play Keruga, I can play Vren. Some elementals players like can't imagine not playing Vren, so they decide against Keruga, and instead of drawing multiple cards in mid game to secure the game this way, they decide to go for Kahira or go for the lack of companion to have like more
Legendary, for example.
yeah, like anything you can think of. So I would love to see one elemental build to be the default version of the deck, and then players go from there, because it
Yeah.
would help the archetype a lot.
I don't think that's the
feel-
case, to be honest. I
Okay.
think it's just the archetype is somewhat fundamentally flawed with no Yorion. It's just that Yorion was this thing that made it so you had this guaranteed way to go over the top of like 90% of the format. Like you can get disrupted and you can get like interacted with and everything. But at the end of the day, you had this Yorion that will very often drew you at least one card, if
Even
not
like
more.
more with Abundant Growth
Yeah,
was a
like the
thing
fail
there.
case usually was you have Yorion with one abundant growth. That was the worst you can do most of the time. And like not having this giant supercharged Mule Drifter for free as your eighth card just makes it so much less powerful, and you are so like much less stable basically. Yeah, I just think that's the reason. Like, of course, having the one go-to build would be probably beneficial, but like look at Hammer. Hammer has mono white and blue white for ages at this point, and even without settling on one of those builds, or how every Mertite deck is kind of different, and those decks are still on top because they are just good. And I think that elementals are missing this like crucial card that you lost with Yorion ban. That's it.
Yeah, or just but maybe that's the thing.
Okay, Jan
Okay.
Saga.
Yes, Jan Saga, and
Okay.
for
Do you
me
have
that's still like a mystery why this deck
Yes,
ever comes in
yeah.
the top. I have no idea. Like some say that that's a weird mix versus like between Merktide and Saga decks, but I feel that like it's a deck that tries to mix these both things, and both of these things are executed worse compared to other decks that are more focused on the things. Like only one exception, Tarmogoyf can outgrow
Yes.
Unholy Hit, and
That's exactly what I think Jan Saga is. It's a statement of a deck of how much better Tarmogoyf is now compared to what it was basically shortly after Pushed got printed, up until when Unholy Hit started to be the most popular spell in the format, or the removal spell. So yeah, basically everything that Saga has going for it, I think, is Tarmogoyf being large and ridiculous. And some people will say, "Oh, but Ren and Saga, Ren and Saga are like in the end, like in the late game, sometimes you will bring back this Saga and you will be like, oh, I can't lose now. But how often it will be, I can't cast my Ren because I have this Saga, or
Yeah,
my Saga can't cast any spells in my deck. Besides Tarmogoyf, which is another reason that Tarmogoyf is broken, because you can't cast it off Saga. Yeah, I just like Saga is just a fucking mid-range deck that
yeah, like I checked the curve right now of this deck, and like that's so like why you want to have 4 sagas in a deck that has, I will even count it, like 4 Tarmogoyf, 1 High Wire Might, that's 5 copies, 1 K command, 1 Pulse, Merstone Pulse in Modern in 2023 between BTW, 5, 6, 7, and you have 1 Shadow Spear, 2 Nihil Spellbomb. You
some
have
fables or no fables.
No Fables, no Fables.
I think you should play Fables in this deck, by the way. Just
Yeah, I checked the
play good
random
cards, please.
like prelim list from Mock Flunkies, and like Urza Saga can cast 10 spells. Your
Yeah, it's
lands
just-
can cast 10
okay.
spells from your
Just
deck.
we'll do ourselves a favor and we'll move to prowess
Thank you.
because we don't want to talk about Jund Saga. Come on. And prowess is, on the other hand, a deck with no colorless land that can't cast anything in your deck. It's a very nice, cohesive, aggressive deck with a lot of power in Underworld Breach. And what I like about prowess is that it's the version of the Underworld Breach deck that actually can use Breach fairly reliably to kill your opponent without having combo in. Like, quite often, if you go Breach, Double Bolt, Mutagenic Growth, off of that Breach, it's enough to kill your opponent. And that's pretty great. Also, you are playing a bunch of good interactive spells. You play Bolts, you play on Whole Hit, you can play Prismatic Ending, you can play Teferi somewhere in your 75 if you want to. You have access to counter magic like Spell Pierce and Flusterstorm. Just so many good cards you can play. Once again, blue-red color pair with a white splash possibly is just so deep in Modern that...
Do you think that blue-red, like, okay, first things first, like, I think that breakout performance for prowess was like, well, not breakout performance, but like the list from Fracom, from Prague, it was like X4, and after that the player named Teda Boy copied the list and make it most, like, I don't know if MTG Goldfish changed that or not, made it to the finals of the challenge.
Okay.
It makes me feel that like the right balance has been found, because like I like the list with like 2 prismatic endings. Like when I see this type of list and see that someone actively wants to splash for prismatic ending, when there are so many good blue and red cards around, that means something, and the deck is like, that's a good
I think
idea.
I basically think that your prowess deck should have as little burn spells as possible. Like, you're playing Bolt, of course, and
Lava Dart.
and Lava Dart because it's just a very good rate for prowess. But other than that, you don't want to play, like, I don't know, Lava Spikes, or you don't want to play those situational cards. You just have a stable, low curve, aggressive deck with a lot of spells and creatures that will benefit from you casting those spells.
Okay, and bless you.
Thank you.
And another question: do you think that prowess is the best Underworld Breach deck? Even if no bad cards Breach is higher on the list. Like, we all talked about how.
I think I like it more.
Okay,
I think I like prowess more than no bad cards Breach.
Yeah, I feel that like the proactivity of prowess makes, and the ability to play Mutagenic Growth plus Underworld Breach makes the potential of combo finish better, so it makes Underworld Breach a better card, because you don't have these feels bad moments when you have Breach and nothing to do, and like nothing impactful to do, because, like, for instance, you can draw like 4 cards, but okay, sometimes you'll draw hot and go nuts, but like, you can draw 4 cards without any pressure, and still opponent has like 2 turns until something happens, and like the life change will happen.
For me, it's basically that's. I think that, once again, no bad cards Breach is just too close to being Merktide, but it's worse for my taste. And prowess is distinct enough from Merktide that it's like a different archetype to me, because you will Goldfish much faster than NBC Breach or Merktide. And like, this actually like changes your matchup. Like, you can go under Endurance with this deck, and you can't go under Endurance with no bad cards Breach. Or with Merktide, for that matter.
If you go for Underworld Breach, like if you have creatures with prowess, you go Underworld Breach, opponent goes Endurance, like in the pitch mode, you are perfectly fine with that. If
Exactly,
they
because
go,
you have pressure and your
even
creature.
if you go, even if a hardcast endurance, you can try to engineer a situation when you feel a graveyard and like replay
Yeah,
something
hardcast
again.
endurance is a bit more problematic, but yeah.
Yeah, like it's not the end of the world compared
Yep.
to fair breach. I know you don't like it, but
Yeah, but
fair, like it looks much more devastating there than in prowess.
okay. Speaking of aggressive red decks, but now we'll get to those that are not great. We have Burn as the last deck in the B tier.
Okay, like one short message to all of you. Please stop playing Burn, play Prowess. Why? Because like every time I see results from bigger tournaments from States, Prague,
Burn has
etc.,
like 20% win
40%,
rate,
like
10%, 5% win rate.
no, like
Oh
let's
yeah,
be
but
real.
it's very, very. It can
It's
only rival
40.
Mill.
Yeah, like Mid is the like we'll talk about Mid in a second. Bern has something between 40, maybe 43%. I never like in this year I haven't seen. I didn't see.
You haven't seen, yeah.
I haven't seen higher than that. Just it doesn't happen nowadays. That's just not true. And like sure, Bern players are trying to do things like, for example, I saw lists without Eidolon and with more Bern spells instead, like Flame Rift. Yeah, for example, Flame Rift and more 1 mana spells. That's reasonable in my opinion because Eidolon is very play draw dependent, and there are matchups when Eidolon does completely nothing, and you
And there's
can
a lot of
afford
removal
to,
in the form.
yeah, and you can afford to go this route. Still, I just believe that if you want to be red and proactive, you should play prowess because it has a higher ceiling and like killing somewhat consistently on 10-4, somewhat because it's not that easy if the opponent has interaction, is not enough nowadays.
So just play,
And
like, one of those decks play Rift Bolt and the other one plays Expressive Iteration.
one plays Skullcrack, the other plays Underworld Breach.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Yeah,
please
let's
don't
go.
play
Let's go.
Burn.
Play.
Play Prowess. Play
We can
Prowess,
play.
please.
We can play more of this game. One
Play
plays
Prowess.
Lava Spike, the other plays Lava Dart.
You know which
Please.
decks play no Lava Spikes or Lava Darts? Every deck in our C tier that we'll move to, because bashing Burn, like it gets boring after a while. I think.
No, but we have like I wanted to say about Meal. If you have
Okay.
a decision between Meal and Burn, please play Burn because Meal is even worse than Burn. Because
No, I
Meal
think if you
can't
have
even
decision between Mill and Burn, you flip a coin. And then no matter what the flip result is, you just don't play this tournament and go touch grass. And that's a better decision than play Mill or Burn. Just
like,
don't do it to yourself.
Mill is like okay, Tibalt of the Red Sap won the Mox, and
But Tibalt of the Red Sap is a wizard with Mill cards.
yeah, like I still don't know how. And okay, I know. The metagame in smaller tournaments can be very different from what a regular modern tournament is. Based from my knowledge, the metagame was very creativity centric, and Mill that flips cards, exiling Archon with Surgical is a solid plan against creativity, in my opinion.
Okay, and also for what we know, Tibalt of the Red Sap is Maro's godson, and he has model hacks, and he just wins.
That's possible.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
Okay, maybe we don't know, but we have some proofs. Okay, we don't have any proof about that. So please abandon Mill. Like I never like when I said that I haven't seen Burn above 43, I haven't seen Mill above 40. It's always around 37, 38%, 39.
Just as our friend would say, dog water percentage.
Yeah, like
it's a garbage deck.
Play it. Yeah.
Okay.
Don't play it. Okay. See.
Okay. Some decks that you maybe shouldn't play but are defensible are decks in the C tier. We have 3 of them. and those are Zoo, Merfolk, and Blue-White. Is there anything you want to say about any of those decks, really, other than the fact that in this 6 weeks span of time, those were in the C tier instead of being even below C tier? I don't
feel
know.
that Zoo and Merfolk are somewhat reasonable choices, while I would never ever touch Blue White
Oh,
unless
I
you
think
are.
that Blue-White, even though I hate the deck, I think it's the most reasonable of those decks.
What?
Yeah, I think Solitude is just a good card, and you have a reasonable set of cards and plans against like popular decks. So like I think that Blue-White is not terrible, and I think it's like it deserves to be higher than Burn, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe the reason that Blue-White is so low is that we don't have any big modern tournaments, and Wafo and Mr. Cafuyeda are playing Pioneer instead of Modern on Modo, and they're busy winning Modern challenge or Pioneer challenges with 4 Sinister Sabotages instead of 4 Archmage's Charms.
Yeah, that's a good
So yeah,
reasoning. So, uh, and about like speaking about Zoo and Merfolk, like that, like both of these decks haven't changed much. We saw the Merfolk list, which like cut most of the Merfolks and played more reactive spells instead. It's like mono blue prison with chalices, subtleties, civil,
Svelun.
Svelun.
It was labeled as Mono Blue Control
Yeah,
by
and
the scraper, and that's how
and
I kept it because
yeah,
it had
this
one
is
Vendilion click.
nice. So there was like some hotness. I'll say that Merfolks are just Merfolks. Nothing new can happen from this deck.
I think those decks are not embarrassing, but they are just not that great. I think like Zoo, for example, kinda. I don't know. There are so many things that are kinda randomly devastating for Zoo. Like I don't know, dress down killing Kavu with while cantripping, Blood Moon being lights out so often.
Your multiple tab plant mana base with
Yeah, exactly.
in
Like
aggressive shell. So
yeah,
some
so many things
problems.
that are just make Zoo like a whack deck. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. So we're done with the list. There are numerous technical breaks. And Modern for the last 6 or, to be frank, 7 weeks that I included this time haven't changed that much. I think the biggest shifts were in the top of the format. And Sodek asked me in last take that we made that we had to scratch because of Sodek swearing in Polish a lot. That the connection is not great. I think that Hammer being so low, like still in A tier, Rhinos being that high, even though like I think it's a good deck, and I wasn't surprising when they finished high in tournaments recently. But all that is not that surprising. Like those are still decks that are in A tier, but in a different order. The real story of this metagame update is what Sodek has got for you in his breakout best deck ever, sitting almost at the top of B tier. Sodek, what is this? What is the secret deck?
Tron. If you are a Tron player, it's your time. Get out from your basement and play more Tron.
From
Because
Tron
it's a
Cave.
Tron Cave. Like I didn't expect Tron to go that high. I feel that like finally cutting Carnibulated to make room for other payoffs is a cool thing to do. So I'm curious if Tron can go any higher than that. I think it's the max level for this deck, and
Yeah.
I don't feel I don't like, I can even imagine it being in tier 1 position, But we'll see. Maybe Cityscape Leveler is exactly what drone players needed to dominate again.
Maybe it will be a good choice on some weekends, but I can't imagine it being like a consistently great deck, basically.
Yes.
Okay, so that's it. To sum this all up, if you didn't want to watch the whole hour and a half of us struggling with internet connections and talking about the same decks as we usually talk about, here is our tier list for mid-April of 2023. A tier is Merktide, Creativity, Rhinos, Red Black Scam, Hammer, and Yawgmoth. B tier is Nomad Cards Breach, Tron, Living End, Amulet, Elementals, Jant Saga, Prowess, and Burn. And C tier is Zoo, Merfolk, and Blue-Eyed. And as always, thanks for watching. We truly appreciate your support on our content. All the links that you need are in the description. And if you are bored of us talking about the same decks every 6 weeks, we will do one of those for Pioneer, heading up to the regional championships in Athens or wherever you are playing your regional championship number 3. It's, at least for us, it will be the second weekend of June. So probably somewhere in early June, we will do one of those, or late May, we'll do one of those for Pioneer. So till then, thanks for watching as always, and we'll see you when we see you. Goodbye. Take care.
See ya.